Okay, so we've all been there, right?
Oh.
You mess up, you got to say you're sorry, but sometimes a quick my bad just doesn't cut it.
Right.
And then there are those times when you really need to make things right with a sincere apology.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what we're going to deep dive into today. Figuring out how to apologize effectively in English. We've got this guide that we're going to be looking at. Think of it kind of like your toolkit for all those awkward situations where you need to say sorry.
I love that. A toolkit.
Yeah.
Because really, apologies are way more complex than they seem on the surface.
Right.
They're not just about smoothing things over. They can be so nuanced.
Yeah.
It's about respect, rebuilding trust, really acknowledging how our actions affect other people.
And this guide, it really highlights that. It's not just a one-size-fits-all.
No, not at all.
It gives you all these different ways to say you're sorry. It even breaks it down into like formal apologies and informal apologies.
Exactly.
So you'll always be ready no matter what the situation is.
Because, picture this. You're in a big meeting with an important client and you accidentally show them some outdated numbers.
Oh, I can only imagine.
A casual, oops, my bad, probably wouldn't go over too well there.
Oh, no. You'd need to be a lot more formal. Right?
Exactly. You need to tailor your apology to the context.
Oh, I've definitely had those awkward moments where a casual apology totally backfired.
Oh, tell me about it. We all have.
Like, one time I accidentally hit reply all to a company-wide email with a sarcastic comment that was meant for just one friend.
Oh, no.
Yeah, talk about a cringe-worthy moment.
You're kidding.
I had to send a very formal and sincere apology to my boss.
That makes total sense.
It was a big lesson learned.
It just shows why it's so important to understand all these subtle differences in apologies.
Right.
In a formal situation like that, you've got to choose your words carefully and have a sincere tone.
Yeah.
You want to show that you really understand the impact of your mistake.
So I'm curious, if my bad doesn't work in a formal setting, what does?
Well, the guide has some great phrases for these kinds of professional situations.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Things like, I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience this may have caused.
It is way better than my bad.
It does, isn't it?
Much more professional and sincere.
Right. And notice how it emphasizes taking responsibility.
Yeah.
And it acknowledges how it affected others.
So it's like you're owning up to your mistake.
Exactly. And that kind of professionalism is key in a work setting.
Definitely. This guide seems like it's packed with useful phrases.
It is.
What are some other examples that you found interesting?
Well, it also covers more casual settings. Like
Yeah.
if you bump into someone on the street,
Ah.
a simple excuse me or I'm so sorry about that would do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're short and sweet, but they still get the point across.
So it's all about striking the right balance.
Exactly.
Formal versus casual. But even when we have the right words, how do we make sure our apologies are really sincere?
That's where it goes beyond just words.
Yeah, so it's not just what you say.
Right. It's how you say it.
Ah, okay. So your tone of voice matters.
Absolutely. A mumbled apology will never have the same impact as one that's genuine.
That makes sense.
Think about it.
Okay, so ditch the monotone.
Yeah.
Put some real feeling into it.
Yes, inject some emotion.
But is there anything else we can do
Absolutely.
besides just the tone of voice?
The guide emphasizes taking responsibility.
Ah, so not making excuses.
Exactly. It's about owning your role in the situation. Instead of saying, I'm sorry I'm late, but the traffic was terrible, try, I apologize for being late. I should have left earlier.
That's subtle, but it makes a big difference, right?
It does. It shows you understand how your actions impacted the other person.
Okay, so it's about taking ownership instead of deflecting blame.
Exactly.
But words can only go so far, right? Sometimes actions speak louder.
You're absolutely right.
So is there anything we can do to really make things right?
The guide talks a lot about that. It calls it making amends.
Okay, so it's about more than just saying sorry.
It might involve offering a solution, fixing a mistake, or showing that you're going to change your behavior going forward.
So like if I missed a deadline, I shouldn't just apologize.
Right.
I should offer to work late to catch up.
Exactly. Or if you offended a friend, you could try to be more mindful in the future.
So it's about showing them that you're serious about your apology.
Exactly.
This is all really insightful. So we've talked about choosing the right phrases, saying them sincerely, taking responsibility, and then following through with actions.
Yeah.
But are there ever situations where even a perfect apology just isn't enough?
That's a great question, and it leads us perfectly into something we'll explore in part 2. Sometimes sorry really isn't enough, especially when trust has been broken.
Okay, well, I can't wait to dive into that.
Me neither.
This is fascinating stuff.
You know, what I find really interesting about this guide is how it dives into those situations where a simple sorry just doesn't cut it.
Right, like when you've really messed up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there are levels to this whole apology thing.
So what do we do in those more serious situations? If sorry isn't enough, how do we make things right? How do we rebuild trust?
Well, that's where this concept of making amends comes in.
Making amends. Okay, so it's about going beyond just the words.
Right. It's about taking real action to show that you're truly sorry and that you're committed to change.
So for example, let's say I've been constantly late for meetings with a colleague.
I've been there.
Yeah, and at this point, just saying sorry again probably won't cut it.
Probably not. They've heard it all before.
Exactly. So what kind of actions could I take to show them that I'm really serious about changing?
Well, in a situation like that, you could start by creating a clear plan to improve your punctuality.
Okay, so like setting reminders maybe?
Yeah, exactly. Or restructuring your schedule so you're not always rushing.
Or even communicating potential delays in advance.
Right. The key is to not just apologize, but to show that you're making a real effort to change the behavior that caused the problem in the first place.
So it's like you're saying, look, I understand how my actions have affected you, and I'm actively working to make things right.
Exactly. And this idea applies to all sorts of situations. Like if you break a promise, you might need to go above and beyond to regain someone's trust. Or if you damage someone's property, you might offer to replace or repair it. It shows that you're willing to take responsibility.
This makes me think of a situation where a friend confided in me about something personal, and I accidentally shared that information with someone else.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, a simple sorry wouldn't fix that.
No, not at all. In a case like that, it's about rebuilding trust over time. You might need to be extra careful about what you share and really prove that you can be trusted again.
So in those kinds of situations where trust has been broken, it's not just about fixing the immediate problem, but also about addressing those underlying issues.
Right, exactly. It requires some real introspection and a commitment to personal growth.
This makes me wonder, though, are there ever situations where even genuine efforts to make amends might not be enough? What if the damage is just so deep that the other person can't forgive you?
That's a really good point, and the guide acknowledges that this can happen. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, forgiveness isn't immediate, and it's important to respect that.
So it's not about forcing forgiveness.
No, definitely not. It's about being sincere and allowing the other person the time and space they need to heal.
It sounds like navigating these really complex apologies requires a lot of understanding and empathy.
It does, and patience too. It's important to remember that forgiveness is a personal choice. We can't control how someone else feels or whether they're ready to forgive. Our focus should be on taking responsibility for our own actions and genuinely trying to make things right.
So we've talked about making amends when sorry isn't enough. We've talked about taking concrete actions, showing that we're committed to change, and respecting the other person's process. But what about the other side of this? What about when we're the ones receiving the apology?
That's a great point. Knowing how to accept an apology gracefully is just as important as knowing how to give one.
Yeah, because it's not always easy, especially when you're still hurt or angry.
Exactly. And the guide actually offers some great advice on this too.
Oh, perfect. Well, let's dive into that in part 3 then. Okay, so we've talked a lot about how to give a sincere apology.
Right.
But like you said, there's that flip side.
Yeah.
What about when we're the ones receiving the apology?
Exactly.
It can be tough sometimes.
Oh, it definitely can. Especially when you're still feeling hurt or upset about whatever happened.
Yeah, for sure. So this guide we've been talking about, does it have any tips for navigating those situations? You know, how to actually handle an apology well?
It does. It actually has a whole section on that. It talks about some really interesting strategies for receiving apologies gracefully.
Okay, so let's say someone has apologized for something they did, and they seem genuinely sorry. What are some ways we can respond that show we acknowledge their apology, but also give ourselves space to process everything?
Well, one thing the guide suggests is to keep it simple and just say, I appreciate you apologizing.
Okay, so it's straightforward.
It is, but it's also really powerful. It acknowledges the effort they've made without making you feel pressured to forgive them right away if you're not ready.
Right, because sometimes you need a little time to sort through your feelings.
Exactly. And the guide offers another phrase that can be helpful in those situations where you need a bit more time.
Okay, what is it?
You could say something like, Thank you for saying that. I need some time to think about this.
That's good. It's clear and direct.
It is. You're communicating that you've heard them, but you're not ready to jump into forgiveness just yet.
So it's like you're hitting pause on the whole situation,
Yeah, exactly.
which is good because sometimes you need that pause to really reflect and make sure you don't say something you'll regret later.
Absolutely. But then there are times when we are ready to accept the apology.
Right. When we've processed things and we feel good about moving forward.
And in those cases, the guide suggests a simple and direct approach.
Like what?
Just say, I accept your apology.
It sounds so basic,
I know, right?
but I can see how in a situation that was maybe emotionally charged, those words can be really significant.
Oh, absolutely. Because accepting an apology isn't always about saying what they did was okay.
It's more about choosing to let go of those negative feelings so you can move on.
Exactly.
Okay, but what about those times when an apology just doesn't feel like enough? Like maybe what happened was really hurtful,
Right.
or you're just not sure if you believe they're being sincere.
Yeah, those are tough situations.
What does the guide say about those?
Well, it encourages us to think about our own needs and boundaries.
Okay, that makes sense.
If we need more time or if we feel like the apology isn't genuine, we have every right to say so.
So we could say something like, I appreciate you apologizing, but I need more time to process this.
Exactly. Or, while I appreciate the apology, I'm having a hard time believing it's sincere based on your past actions.
Right. So it's about finding that balance.
Yeah,
Being open to forgiving them, but also honoring our own feelings.
absolutely. And recognizing that forgiveness is a process, not a light switch.
Right.
It takes time. And it's okay to set boundaries and move at our own pace.
Okay, so we've talked about how to receive an apology gracefully, acknowledge it, ask for more time, even express our doubts. But what about actual forgiveness? Is that something we should always aim for, even when it's hard?
That's a big question. And I think it's important to remember that forgiveness is a choice.
Not an obligation.
Exactly. The guide emphasizes that forgiveness is primarily for the person who was hurt, not the person who did the hurting. It's about letting go of anger and resentment so you can heal and move on.
So it's not about condoning what they did or letting them off the hook.
Right. It's about freeing yourself from those negative emotions that are holding you back.
And the guide makes an interesting point. It says forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean reconciliation.
Right.
You can forgive someone without continuing the relationship.
Exactly. It's about finding peace and moving forward in a way that feels right for you.
Wow. This has been really eye-opening. We've covered so much about apologies, from giving them to receiving them and even talking about forgiveness. What's your biggest takeaway from all of this?
I think for me, it's that apologies are so powerful. They can really help us heal and grow, both the person who apologizes and the person who receives the apology.
Right, because it's all about recognizing that we make mistakes.
We all do.
And it's about trying to make things right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally agree. And forgiveness is a journey.
It is.
And it unfolds in its own time.
Absolutely. And sometimes the most important apologies are the ones we give ourselves.
Oh, that's so true.
Acknowledging our own mistakes and showing ourselves compassion.
Yeah, that could be really powerful.
It can be.
I think that's a great point to end on.
Yeah.
We've all messed up, and we'll probably mess up again.
It's part of being human.
Right. But what matters is that we're willing to learn from our mistakes and grow and make amends, both with other people and with ourselves.
Beautifully said. And to everyone listening, the next time you find yourself dealing with an apology, remember everything we've talked about today. Choose your words carefully, be sincere, and be ready to back up your words with actions. And if you're the one receiving the apology, try to be open to hearing it, give yourself time to think, and then decide what path toward forgiveness feels right for you.
Well said. Until next time, everyone, stay curious, be kind to each other, and keep those apologies genuine.